Okay, so welcome back. So in this tutorial, I'm going to, do like an in-depth field type of, I don't know how you call it, but I'm going to essentially analyze this trailer, and we are going to see how depth of field was actually used in every shot to direct your focus either on the background or the foreground. So let's dig in. First shot, the background. Is it completely out of focus or in focus? So it is essentially in between focus. It's out of focus, but not that much. So our attention as much as it is on the foreground, but we are also being psychologically been told to also look at the thing that is happening on the back. Okay. So in this shot, everything is in focus. So we've been told like, hey, look at everything. So that's essentially what depth of field is telling us right now. Look at everything. Psychologically, we have been told to look at everything. Let's go. In this shot, the same case. Look at this guy in the back. I mean, in the foreground. And do you see the nice sky that we have here in the back? You can also look at it too. So here we've been told by the lens selection, I've talked that in the previous tutorial, but here we have been told like look strictly at this guy and nothing else. The background has been blurred, so we essentially cannot see anything in the back. We can assume there's a sky, but let's say there was somebody in the back, we wouldn't be able to see it. We see the person behind him. In this shot, everything is in focus. We've been told to look at everything. So what about this? So in this shot, the things that are actually in focus are these people that are fighting here, and that also is more I don't know what to put here, but also the lens that has actually been used here allows for us to psychologically focus on these people that are fighting here and have little less focus on things in the back. In fact, I've watched this trailer like 500 times. Right now is when I'm noticing that there are actually planes here in the back, these tiny little planes, and that is because I have looked at this frame for long, and this actually part is almost like a second. So psychologically our focus will be these people that are fighting here, in between here somebody's getting hit, and less focus on what is happening, even though we can see it, but more focus is actually on the foreground. Okay, even in this shot, more focus on the foreground, less on the back, even though there's something exploding there, but our attention is not being directed there, using depth of field. Okay, so I hope you see the pattern. Even in this shot, our focus is actually on the tank. It's actually a tank. I called it a trunk. Sorry, it's actually on the tank because everything else in the back is been blurred. So we've been told, hey, look here. We are told like, hey, look at everything, but also the lens selection in this shot kind of tell us, hey, look at these people here on look at these soldiers. Essentially our focus here is not that much on what is happening essentially in this shot. I can say it's like 35 millimeter or maybe somewhere near 50 millimeter lens. Sorry, I'm putting the lens stuff in the depth of field tutorial, but essentially we've been psychologically been told that look at these soldiers and somehow beware for things that might happen, and as you may see, boom, something happens. So we were psychologically prepared for something that was going to happen, even though our focus was actually on the soldiers, and this has actually been intelligently crafted. Let me play it again. So like, hey, look at these soldiers. I mean, they're fighting, but I don't know, maybe something might happen in the background. Boom, it happens. Okay, so yeah, and like in this shot here, this guy has a flamethrower, everything in the background has been focused, just focus on him, nothing is going to happen in the back. So essentially, this, if I was also going to do like a millimeter breakdown, focal length breakdown, I could say it's I don't know, 85 and above, because there's, first of all, there's less focus on the background, and the background has been blurred out of focus using depth of field. Yeah, so let's go. So you see how it's been, even in this shot, it's like, look at this guy, man, he's like in pain, but we're not made to think more about the things in behind him. I don't know, maybe if you wanted to convey, look at this guy, and then a snake is going to come behind him, we could have maybe blurred a little bit less the background, and maybe use a different kind of lens, because this looks like somewhere like above 50 millimeter, I don't know, 60, 70, 80. Yeah, so this is psychologically telling us, look at this guy, there's nothing that's going to happen, but look at him, he's in pain. That is just been told by the lens. You see how amazing this is? Even in this shot, look at this guy, and everything behind him has been out of focus, including this part of his shirt that is actually like behind his ear. It's out of focus. So this shot is essentially telling us, look at this guy. I wonder what is he looking at. But just look at him. There's nothing that's going to happen behind him. And yes, nothing is going to happen behind him, because what is happening is actually in front of him. And here we have this shot. So what kind of lens do you think of this shot is? I could say 24 millimeter, 16 millimeter, but essentially the kind of lens that allows us to see everything, even the way everything is actually in focus. Everything that matters in this shot is, I can say, is in focus. So if they have actually blurred maybe the sky, I don't know if it's actually been blurred or maybe because of the smoke behind, but essentially using depth of field, we can clearly see the person there, the big plane or airship that is actually above, and it's in perfect focus. But there are some trees here we can't see in the back, and that's I'm not quite sure it's because of the depth of field that was actually used. I'm not sure if they've been blurred, or maybe it's the smoke that is making them not visible. But the whole point is how these two tools, focal length and depth of field, have been used together to tell the viewer what to watch. If we wanted to show this stuff, but there's something that is coming from the behind, we could have blurred the things that are actually on the front and focus on that thing that is actually on the back. So even though we have these things on the front, but we are telling the viewer these things on the front are nothing compared to what is coming from the back. Okay? So that is how we intelligently do it. So in this point, I would like to also mention that from here we were psychologically being prepared for something that was going to happen in front of this guy, and not behind him, in front of him. So if, let's say, I was going to do this shot and then show something that is actually happening behind, it wouldn't make that much psychological sense, because we were prepared for something that is happening behind him, in front of him. So if something happened behind, it'll freak us out. We were like not psychologically being prepared. Okay, so that's Battlefield 1. I hope you don't mind me being obsessed by these trailers, but essentially that's how it's done. Okay, so in the next tutorial, I'm going to show you this focus. Even though we are going to use focus, kind of essentially I'm going to show you how to use these very same techniques to create a horror movie, or scare somebody at least. That's the whole point. So see you on the other side.